So let's just take, there are two basic ways your bottom hand can be. Let's leave the top one out just for a moment. Remember, your elbow tip is always facing down. Your bottom elbow tip is facing down. Well, I should say there are three ways. One way, the easiest, that activates the lower dantian and takes the least stretch of the body, and that's all it's really about, is just to have your hand like so. For example, this is the one Wang Shujing always did. This was the one that lots of people always did as the first position. And the object here is that your thumb is pointing towards your lower dantian, and you're trying to make the connection basically from your thumb into your lower dantian through your entire arm back to your hand over here. Okay? Now, that's one. The second one, which is stronger, but harder to do, because it again is going to ratchet up all those insertion points, is to get your hand in front of your dantian, but it's pushing forward. So the palm is pushing forward. Now when the palm is pushing forward again, it is more now that the point that makes the connection here on your hand is called hugu. This point right here, it's a Chinese term. Tiger's mouth? There we go. It's hugu. That's the easiest way, but that's one way to get it connect here. Or the other way is simply just to get the center of your palm to connect right into your lower dantian. But this one here, your hand is not like so. See the first one, see what this is doing? It rounds your body this way. The value of that is that, you remember this whole business I talked about, wrapping from the spine to the front? That makes it the easiest way to, in the beginning, get the pelvis to wrap and to get the Liu Tun Si Kwa together. That makes it the easiest way. However, once you have that together, the next one is to have your hand kind of be like so, look. So that here, your fingertip points to your elbow tip, but your palm is projecting forward. Now, one of the biggest things for some of you, and Lee will show you that, and they're going to start showing you applications, is that there's a whole lot of stuff in Bagua when you go to multiple people. It's real simple. One hand basically does something, and the other hand goes boom from the side to the person. That's a really common application. Yeah, look, just, if you're like this, if I had his hand and I'm moving, all of a sudden, boom. And because Bagua has the ability to project power out the front leg, it can pretty much do anything on a back-legged stance it can do from a front-weighted stance, which makes it very unusual in the martial art world. But the purpose of this thing here is, this one is a stronger way of connecting to your lower dantian, and after you have the wrapping and your hand goes forward like that, it actually opens up your spine more from the horizontal aspect. Now the last but not least one, which is the hardest one to do and requires the greatest amount of stretch if your arm is out, is to have your elbow basically either touch or go right underneath your elbow tip. Sorry, the index finger. Now the thing about this is you have to realize is that at every bit your finger goes up just a little bit, the inside of your body is going to feel like it's being pulled apart. It's going to be stretched. Okay? Because as you get your finger up higher, your spine has to open up, your neck has to open up. A lot of parts of the inside of your body have to open up or you can't maintain it. And it's not just putting your hand this way, because remember, remember the sphere I talked about? Look. You see how my whole body's wrapping around? It's not just the fact that you're standing here and you just kind of put your finger here. Look, watch, can you all see me? Look, I'll have my finger down here, so watch. It's not that, it's this. And now look at my legs. It's like wrapping all the way. This bottom hand, when it goes here, wraps all the way to both of your feet. So you're like, boom, that's what it's doing to the body. So it's a pretty big stretch. Simple, pure and simple. And it's invisible. Nobody watching it would actually get it's happening. Now we go for the front arm. Number one, it's not just keep your shoulders down. It is, turn around. You want to have the sense of your shoulders blades basically sinking to it almost feels like they're right inside your ass. Do you understand? You want to have the sense of your shoulders blades sinking like this, going right to your butt, so the whole thing of Liu Tun Si Kwa and your shoulders, they join into one piece. That's the idea, and this is another very powerful thing about body unification. All these things I'm talking about here, there's a phrase that's used in China, it's called Liu He, or 6 combinations, and I'm only talking about the external ones. The shoulder, the hip, the elbow, the knee, the hand, the hand, the foot. There's also internal ones. The mind, the intention, the consciousness. Okay, so now the next thing is we turn around again. Now, next point that's terribly important is that, and again, these are not in any specific order because they are all supposed to be happening at once. Can you all follow me? So my recommendation for most of you is that rather than getting like one perfect and the other one crappy, if you would take just kind of the continuum of 0 being as badly as it possibly can be done and 100 being as well as it possibly can be done, you want to try and make, okay, go to the first 10% with every one of these all together. Then go to 20% with all of these all together. It is the weak link that blows the chi in your system. Anybody hear me? It is not the strong link that does it. It's not the strong part, it's the weak part that unravels the whole thing. And in this one sense, the chi of the body is not the same as business. Because we live in a business money culture, right? With this whole crash, everything is economics this and economics that. Bear something in mind. In business, you only need to do a couple of things well, and you can do 25 million lousy, as long as the 3 ones that are good do the thing. Can you all follow me? That's how you make money. Very few companies are like General Electric that make God almost everything that exists. Most, they do these couple of things well, and if they can't do something well, we shouldn't be in that business. But wait a minute, can I ask you a simple question? And I say this all the time, especially going to be teachers. Oh, okay, great. Run your body like a business. So, okay, so you don't mind throwing your liver away. I mean, it's a weak division. Why keep it? Chuck it, you know. Hell, throw your liver out. Hey, how about that part of your brain? Should we just like take the spoon and get it out? Hey, got strong arms, good legs, good spine. Can we cut your genitals out? Don't need them. Oh, well, what the hell? You can smell really well and hear really well. Can we pluck your eyes out? You have to understand the body is a complete interconnected thing. Okay, when one part goes wrong, let's just say that's the big problem. But try and understand every part of the body in its interconnectedness makes every other part of the body work well. Are you all following me? So that's why I'm saying go 10%, 20%, 30%, and don't get hung up on the part that's strong. Because at the end of the day, as I said, in the human body, you don't go to the hospital for the strong parts of your body, you go for the weak links that break. It's that simple. So in that one sense, a human being is not the same thing completely as a business. I'm only saying because the current, if this were 1,000 years ago, everything is religion. Period. If you're in Europe, everything is religion. Now everything is business. So people have this idea, they take on a business mentality. Well, except your body, guess what? You can't look at it strictly in the way you have a business. Warren Buffett doesn't make computers. Bill Gates doesn't trade the markets. And guess what? The 2 of the richest men in the world. And you know, they don't have to do the other thing because they made the money someplace else. But your body, the parts that weaken and break down are going to be the parts that are going to give you grief, but there's also another part of it. As parts in your body weaken and break down, they make the stronger parts weaker at the same time. So 10%, 10%, 10%. So we go back here again, stick your arms up in the air. So we get the shoulders going down. Now we have the next thing. Okay. Now we're just going to take the front arm for a minute, then go back to the back arm. For most of you, as this level 1, all you want to do is get one thing. You want to be able to turn your arms in enough so that, put your hand down, so that your elbow tip is facing the ground. What is a big no-no? That is no good. You don't want that. Nah, terrible thing to do. Also, that's no good. You know why? That's another terrible thing to do to yourself. Don't put an arm lock on yourself. It's not good for you. Because you know part of the things that happen when you put your elbow out this way too much? What's going to happen is you stretch out, you're going to put strain on your neck, and you don't even know you did it. And it's cumulative. It's not big special effects. Okay, so now we go like this here. Now we have an issue. Okay. Well, how far out does your elbow go? Well, basically, if you were to take both hands, put your other hand back up now, you just would want to kind of shake your hands until how far do they come out, so that in the shaking of your hands, you feel it go down at least to your butt. Remember, your shoulders have to go down. It means it's got to go through your back to your butt. And eventually, if you're good, you can go down to your feet. And that's it. And that gives you your space out. Now, we have something else that's going on here. This elbow has to turn in so that instead of being like this, look at me. Do you see it go down? See my hand right now? It's out to the side, yes or no? Now, watch my arm as I twist the muscles inward. Can you see how the elbow tip is moving toward the ground? You want to have that. Now we have another issue. When, how far out besides your spine determines how far out either hand goes. Well, for this we have to look at something else. And just put your hand down for a second so people know what you're doing. This area here is called the shoulder's nest. Okay? Can you all see this? See where my fingers are going in? This area here is called the quad. The more these sink in, the more the chi will naturally drop down the left and right channels of your body. But these areas here also form a break as to how far your arms can extend out your spine without there being, let's just say, the system freezing up. So now watch. He puts his hands out, okay? And now, the more you put your hand out, you don't put your hand out. That's not the basis upon which your hand goes out. The base upon which your hand goes out is that this sinks in, and as this has it, then you can just stick your arm out without any trouble. Can you follow me? But it's not just your shoulder's nest, it's your qua sinking in along with your shoulder's nest. Because as your qua goes in, that sets off the Liu Tun Si qua, that joins the body and then increases the whole body circulation. Now we have your hands. The basic message is your joint must be open and not slammed shut. So, in the sense of you keep your joint open, you open your hands, and your hand only goes back as far. Look at me. Your hand, the whole thing is driven by your index finger going back. But eventually it becomes all five, but it starts with the index. Can you all see my hand? Can you all see how I just closed the joint, yes or no? Yes or no? Now watch something else, and this also has to do with the shoulder's nest and the 2 points in the quad doing their thing. Watch. As they sink in more, the joint opens up. Is my joint closed now? Look at it. Get the difference. You only make your palm go as far forward as your wrist joint stays open. You only make your palm go as far forward as the joints in your palm stay open and the joints in your fingers stay open. So they're all open together. And that's the difference for those of you like a martial art. You do this, then you gotta go bam, but you have this sort of a thing. I'm just telling you, it's a hell of a pile driver. Just leave it at that. So you're all getting that part. Now we have another piece here. Now we have that your finger wants to go to your nose. You want to be able to look straight at your index finger. Eventually, and the first step is that your eyes become soft. All of you just do something right now. Look at me. Do you have to go, you see me? Just relax your eyes and notice you can see my fingers without using any strength in your eyes whatsoever. All you want to be able to do is to see there, and if you have the ability, dissolve or relax the area right behind the eyeball where the optic nerve is, where you have an energy gate. Okay? So you just relax it. Relax it so you can see without going double vision or something. Okay? Now, you look at your finger. When you first walk the circle, you look at your finger. As time goes on, you start looking past your finger. But that's over time. Okay? So now we have the next thing. We have your hand. Well, let's have your hand just relax. The object is that, one, your hand has to become concave. Yes? You all see this? So that means this hand goes around, and the trick is to do it to where you don't put so much strain on it that you start shaking or your bones close. The next thing is you want to have the sense that there are 200 palm positions, ways the hand are held in the monastic tradition. In the Bhagwad's martial art tradition, there are about, from this point, just watch, I'm just doing some of them. There's about 15 that people use quite commonly. Okay? Different schools will tell you do this one or that one. I'm going to give you the most basic one, which in terms of meditation, in terms of opening up the chi in your body, I consider to be the smartest one to do in the beginning. Okay? Now, that's just my opinion. That was Leo's opinion. As a matter of fact, pretty much everybody I met held that opinion, but they also, some people, they have a lot of them, and they're for different reasons. if you take your two fingers, think about like you'd want to take a head and just squeeze it. Do you see this? Just squeeze it. So like you're holding a basketball in your hands. Okay? The second one is that this finger extends out, and the object is at first it starts vertical, or maybe even a little bit like this if you have to. But the ultimate object is that as the finger goes back, the wrist opens more and more. As the wrist opens more and more, the shoulder's nest opens more and more. As the finger goes, as it goes back, the chi goes, you breathe first from your nose to your finger. You breathe first from your nose to your finger. But then it goes from your nose, it kind of goes into the middle of your brain to where your third eye is, and you inhale down to your lower dantian, and then you exhale coming up your central channel, up your lower dantian to here, then out your eyes to your finger, and either to your finger or beyond. So that's about breathing in the nose, okay? But the other part is that this finger goes up and eventually it goes back if it can. And as the finger goes back, your belly is going to start opening up and getting stronger, and it should actually increase either the heat or just the sheer feeling of chi in your lower dantian. Now your next two fingers just basically spread apart like this. They just spread apart. So this sort of a thing, eventually, in the very, very tips of your fingers, just watch, very, very lightly bend. Very lightly bend, just so that you could use your fingers. And this, in martial arts, develops the ability to have what they call an eagle claw, okay? It has the ability to, a real serious gripping thing, but it does something else. Each of your fingers is connected to one of your 5 internal organs, and this very slight bending of the fingers really concentrates what's happening in your hand. It concentrates the chi in your internal organs. And this very light closing, later on, there are techniques in walking the single palm change where your body pulses, it opens and closes. And the fingertips just very lightly do this. A big thing about Bagua, which for some of you may or may not be concerned about, but is a big thing in Bagua, is that this hand position over time really develops the tendons of the hand. That's something Tai Chi doesn't do. The willow leaf hand or the various hands in Tai Chi are about developing that. In Tai Chi, what happens is that any sense of strength goes to here and the hand just becomes completely empty so your chi can flow out to your fingertips. Bagua does something different. It not only develops the hands, but it very deliberately takes the chi into the fingertips. So whereas the Tai Chi hand is an empty hand, the Bagua hand is what they call a full hand. And that's a differentiation. Okay, now, obviously what we have here is we have this, then we have the hand like so. Now we have to have the very interesting question of, by opening your hand, you use that to stretch the inside of your body between your two hands. So it's not just that you have your hands and you're trying to go, "Ugh!" No, you don't do it that way. It's not like, something like that, 'cause your head's going to go in every direction. Can you all see me? I just want to make sure it's visible. No, the way it happens is that the opening of your hand, just look what I'm doing. The fingers bend a bit. When that hand opens, that's what actually opens up the inside of your body. So the palm itself is used eventually to be able to directly contact every single piece of internal anatomy you have. Contact it, work it, do whatever you want to do with it. So come back here again, Paul. So, have you got the basic idea? That's the question. Okay, you're each now going to get 10 minutes, 20 minutes in total, and you both go out there and you just work each other. Hey, I want to say something here. I don't want to see this jazz of, looks very good. Yeah, maybe put your hand a little bit that way. No, if you think their body should go somewhere, especially if you're going to be teachers, learn how to do something. Learn how to approach a person so you almost like the energy of your palm, your etheric body is touching him, and then so that when you touch them, they're feeling it coming in gradually so they don't freak out, because this is a very young type of art. So you don't first put a hand on somebody. Watch me. You just, for those of you who know do dragon and tai, you get their etheric body and you start closing in on that so their body just settles to the fact you're going to touch them. And then gently, okay, I want Paul's shoulder to open up. Watch. Okay, Paul. Paul, I'm telling you, this is like really uncool, but he goes, what the fuck are you talking about? I think it's great.
It's perfect.
They're not aware of what they're doing, or they probably wouldn't be doing it. especially if they've had instructions. Get that through your thick skull. It's not about the fact they're being willful, insolent, or anything. They really don't get it. So it's, okay, Paul, now just feel where my hand is. Now watch. Did you notice that your hand, your shoulder can go down?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so good. Let's do it again, Paul. You see, that's uncool, but that's cool, right? Or, okay, Paul, why don't you just see if you can kind of spread your hand a little more. That's what you want to do. You want to get them to feel what they're trying to do, and if you want to use words, get them in their head to understand what they're trying to do. But understand something. Talking to somebody's brain is not the same thing as talking to their body. Because it's the body that's got to remember how to do this. The brain can go, well, that's not right. And the body goes, fuck you, I don't want to talk to you anymore. That's it. So there's no conversation. Nobody knows what's going on. So wait a second. Okay, oh, I got that. That's an interesting thing. But then you get the body to understand what the head understands, and you begin having the basis for the connection to your nervous system so your nerves will remember. All the patterning you're doing here, like for example, oh, I have one more thing I forgot. Let's say you want to get him to drop his elbow a bit. It's not about telling him drop his elbow, because you can stand there and tell them 15 times, you don't know what they're going to do. It's about letting their nervous system get what dropping an elbow is. Because at the end, if they want to correct something, what are they going back to? They're going back to what the body feeling is. That's the only way they have back to the gingerbread house. All right, so let's now go about holding the posture and walking the circle. Come here, Craig. Let's get someone different. Paul got ragged out enough this morning as it is. So take your shirt off. Now, all the things I was talking about with the single palm change, just face them for a second. Everything I said about your head, your neck, your chest, your belly, your feet, all goes the same. And the one thing that I want to make a point is that your elbows must be bent, at least 20%. 30 would be better. Now, ideally when you do this posture, there are two classic ways in which it's done. The first way is like this as the beginning, in which your wrist is basically straight and your fingers are up curved. Okay? But that is only to get your body to where you can kind of keep your arms up in the air. Eventually, the way it has to be done is the wrist has to extend. The palms have to be up, like I would just call it Atlas lifting the earth. Okay? For example, sometimes in the old martial art thing where they did it, where they use weights, it's a hell of a thing to have a 20-pound steel ball in your fingers when you're doing this. That's all, especially when you have to hold it with your fingertips as opposed to let it rest in your palm. That's all I can state. It's kind of a cutie pie. That was just an aside to mention it. So now we have an issue here, huh? So watch, this is Craig. Basically, what degree of turn does he have now? 0. Okay, Craig, walk circle. Okay, so now here we go. So turn, Craig. Now the thing about this type of a posture is what you could call a symmetrical posture. Each of the arms is doing the exact same thing. Can you all follow me? In your test, you're only going to be required to do symmetrical postures. If you look in the book, you can see static arm postures. They're all mirror image. Well, the last 4 postures you're going to have are going to be ones, for example, like this, that when you're going to change directions, you're actually going to have to change your arm position, which is going to be a little bit more difficult. Just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so now let's freeze. Can you all get that that's 0? Now, so maybe 30 degrees. Start with 30. I would say that the only reason why a person would probably do 15 is if they just had some dramatic injury, which could happen with a knee or anything. Okay, so now Craig walks. But here's the thing, huh? His eyes are basically looking straight ahead. So that's 30 degrees. And turn around. Turn around. And again, everything I said about the nervous system and it freezing and all of that goes right here. It's not different. They're the same exact principles. Now, okay, so now you turn around again. Now, okay. Now, freeze. Now, if he goes now to about 45, okay? Bear in mind, this would be 90. When he goes to about 45, most likely in this posture, he can now begin to look at the center of the circle. Okay? Somewhere between 45 and 60, it becomes possible to look at the center of the circle. But I want to make a very important point. Watch my eyes for 1 second. My head is facing straight with my spine, yes or no? The point being that your eyeballs can move in your head without needing to move your head. So when you get to this point, you want to be able, again with your eyes soft, to pretty much, look in the center of the circle. But this doesn't need to happen till you hit about 45 or 60 degrees. Before then, when you're just 15 or 30, look straight ahead, because it's kind of ridiculous if you're only facing this much and your eyes are literally going to screw right out of your head. It's too much. Okay, so cool. So Craig drops down. The biggest point that I want to make here is that remember, the elbows stay bent. What is no? No. Elbows well bent. Because it is not a matter of you're not going to break your arms. It's a matter of everything that this is going to eventually do for your internal organs, your spine, is going to get blown because you cannot pump the fluids of your body with a straight elbow. You can't. Well, no, you can't use anyway the methods in Taoism to do that. This is a major differentiating point for those of you I've read books and whatnot between what they call the Taoist or the internal schools in Shaolin, because Shaolin straightens the elbow all the time, and they also don't use the pumpings of the fluids of the body the way the Taoist arts do. So just in case you've had some experience with this Kung Fu, without Kung Fu, don't find this too strange, because it's a really major differentiating point between those two schools. And in the monastic tradition in Bagua never had anything to do with the Shaolin Temple. Well, I shouldn't say this. Their stuff went into the Shaolin. The stuff from the Shaolin didn't go the other way. It was very, very clear what the flow pattern was. Okay, so now he goes and he does this. Here we go. And now, if you can go 90, go 90. Or go 75 probably, then 90. But again, every point? When you're practicing on your own, you don't suddenly go from 60 to 90. You go from 60 to 65 to 70 to 75 to 80 to 85 to 90. And what's the point? Can you keep these internal alignments together, and can your nervous system relax sufficiently to where you can go to the next thing with not much more strain than you had in the last one? That's the point. I should also mention this is a fundamental point of Tao Yoga, of longevity breathing yoga, okay? The basic principle of longevity breathing yoga is the same principle that's in Bagua. It was the same principle in all of Taoism. You don't stretch your body to relax. You release everything inside your body, especially your nerves, and then you just let your body grow out to its natural size. That's a fundamental principle, and that cuts through Tai Chi, Bagua, Qigong, longevity breathing yoga, sitting, the works. You don't push your nerves to stretch your body and then try at the end of that to have a relaxation. That's why I constantly say you're not going to get relaxed by being tense. Their method is very simple. Wherever you are, you stay where you are until you can release the inside of your body, and in that release, in that internal release, all of a sudden your body will stretch on its own. I want to make that point because it's based upon how the nervous system works and not how muscle fibers work. It's an important point here. So, okay, so Craig's doing that. Now, cool. Now, what is a really, 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 really big deal? Is Craig next time? We just freeze him? Freeze. Now, no matter what happens, remember one thing, folks. Those 4 points got to stay together. Not just start twisting your shoulders to get into the center of the circle. Can you follow me? It is the 4 points staying together, not that you just kind of go, well, my 4 points went here, but it was kind of, no. Everything together. And ideally, if you get the 4 points together, what's going to start happening sooner or later in Bagua is that the turning of your waist is actually going to twist your legs. Just as in the other direction, the twisting of your legs will turn your waist. They'll go in both directions. You also, for example, have the same principle in Tai Chi. You have either the legs, they talk about the legs and the waist being one unit, and it's true. But there's a question of, is it the bottom, the legs that are causing the top to turn, as in, see, look at this. Just get it, because this is what, when the linkage eventually happens, this is what happens. Notice something. Legs, feet, right? Top and the waist move, don't they? Yes or no? Hey, guess what? Watch it again. It goes the other direction too. The object is to where it becomes one unit. But the major point I want to have you get is that this turning into the center of the circle with each step, eventually it's going to be that you're not, after you go through an initial learning period of getting your legs to be able to twist, which is really what the straight line walking is about, that then it just becomes that, here, look, just look at my legs. I really am not doing anything with my legs, just trust me. Watch. Look what happens when if I keep the 4 points together. You seeing the legs? Are you seeing the legs turning, twisting, yes or no? Oh, they're just linked. Equally, I could do it this way. I could make the thing start from my foot and go up the other direction. So it goes both ways. When you're walking, I want you at least to start getting the idea that somehow the walking and the turning of your waist can also, to the degree that your legs are loosened up, it can cause them to move. That's an important point. Okay, so Craig, we're going to do something else now. Now, he's going to assume the single palm change position. So where do you start? Straight ahead. Now, bear in mind, what do you think is stretching the inside of your body more? This one or this one? The second, for sure. So here, although you might be able to start with this with 30 degrees, I wouldn't hold your breath on starting with this one with 30 degrees. I'd start straight ahead. And I'd move, 15-degree notches a bit by bit. So he walks, and so he walks. And he's got to somehow keep that, because it is not an easy thing. In the beginning, the tendency is going to be for the top and the bottom part of your body to have almost nothing to do with each other. And as you teach people, that's going to be what's going to happen when you watch them. So you have to get that the first thing is that somehow, the really hard part's going to be eventually to get what's happening up here in the torso to somehow get through their ass, get to the bottom of their butt, and then the butt join with their legs. And it just takes time. There's no way to make it happen fast. At least no one's ever been able to figure it out in a couple of thousand years. So if you're that creative, when you find it out, let me know, because I'm terribly curious to see how you pull it off. I really am. I don't doubt someone's going to figure it out one day, but let's just put it this way. So far, in 4,000 years, no one's been able to work it out, but you never can tell. Hey, man, never can tell what genius is going to pop up in the world next week. Really, it happens. Now we have a thing here. Your nervous system relaxes. All this stuff about, God, I got to keep this together and that together. You just give your body the time till it can settle into the position to where your body remembers the position, not your head going, oh yeah, I got my elbow this, got my this. Because I'm telling you, once you start walking fast, you're not going to be able to keep all that mental information together. You just can't. I'm just telling you, it's not doable. And I don't care how smart you are. Okay, so now he turns, so now as he's walking, now see if turn 15 degrees. Now, it's not a huge thing, is it? Are you following me? Okay, now, when he wants to turn, for right now, don't worry about what you do with your hands. When you want to turn, just do this. Just watch me. Somehow turn and just let one hand go up and one hand go down. Any way will do. The main thing you're looking for is it's smooth. So, okay, turn, Craig. Just one up and one down. One goes up, one goes down. Any way will do. You're walking like this, you turn, okay, that's fine. Just let one hand go up, one hand go down. Just keep them in motion. Just keep them in motion. Don't worry about doing it right. There's actually a lot of ways that can be done. But right now, I just want you to first have somehow the transition and turning directions for the hands changing. This will do fine. Do you understand? Doesn't matter. You know how to turn your wrist, be my guest. But even if you just make one hand go down and one hand go up, the main point I want you to have is that when you change directions, just as you want your feet to be smooth, you just want your hands to be moving smoothly and in some type of coordination with your feet. Tomorrow, we're going to get into how you do this. But not today. Today I just want you to go this far. So Craig turns. He just makes his hands go, there you go, and he kind of gets it up. And that's fine. Now let's say he's walking and walking and walking. He says, that's cool. And okay, turn 30 degrees. Turn more. So now you're going to have the question of, did your nerves glitch up? And that's why I'm recommending go 5 degrees, then the next 5 degrees. Always looking at, is my body connecting and are my nerves moving to where they can have a steady flow rather than those kind of jumps. You got enough of those in life as it is, really. Don't practice it into your system. Don't input it into your system. You follow me? Input how to go from one thing to the next with a smooth glide. That's probably one of the greatest stress release techniques you will ever learn in your life. It won't get much better than that. So now let's just for a moment look at again several ways that you could change your hands in the single palm posture if you're just walking with it. So you're going like this. Probably, honestly, the easiest one is just do this. As you turn, just keep your hands as they are. Watch. Just now, when you turn around, let your hand just turn like this. And then just switch your hands any way you like, and then just turn them over. Okay? Another way it can very easily be done is basically just to do this. Just keep them just twirling in some way, just so that you end up in this position. Remember, the central issue is just that you don't stop. You don't have discontinuity. You don't gap out. You don't space out. You don't disassociate. Now, I want to just say this one thing again. Some of you may not know what disassociation is. It is somewhat of a psychological term, but understand. To associate means to be present with. For example, come here, Craig. This is a terribly simple way to show what dissociation is. To associate with someone. Hi, Craig. I'm here. He's there. We're present in what we're doing. You're present in where your hand is, whatever. Now, you want to see what a dissociation is in its grossest form? Hi, Craig. Oh, John, I haven't seen you in years. God, you're looking really, really different. When that occurs, the only place that occurs is inside your mind. Do you understand? And that's why I call it little rooms inside your mind. The thing is that most people, come back here again, Craig. This is actually what happens. They go like this. Hi, hey, John, how you doing? Absolutely, John, you're looking really great. You don't even see what's in front of you. You go inside a place in your mind, and then very often, a couple of minutes or a few seconds later, you emerge, and it's all of a sudden like, John, Craig, hi. And it's like, what? And very often this happens very seamlessly. I'm not kidding. I have walked in front of more people doing Bhagavad. Just walk around, do a single palm change. Just walk around. Seeing they're disassociated, God knows where they are. Walked right up next to them. They don't even know you did it. I used to do this in some of my classes. Come here, and I'm really not kidding. I would go like this. Hi. So the person, oh, you're there. Because they'd walk around you once or twice and not even see you looking right at you. That is the power of dissociation. You can just call it gaps in your mind. But what I want you all to realize in terms of meditation, it is not just a lapse of concentration. You went somewhere and you actually are doing something. Can you all follow me? It's not just your concentration's weak, like a weightlifter, and you know, like, oh, I can't, oh, I can't. It's not about that. It's about the fact that when something like that occurs, just be aware and ask yourself a very simple question. Where the hell did I just go? Because you did go somewhere. It isn't like you just disappeared. It isn't like your concentration just was weak. You went somewhere. And then the whole process when you're doing Bhagwad's meditation is slowly to first try and be present, but second of all, start recognizing where did you go and then bring up what's in that place and then basically clean it out. Because that is how a small or a large percentage of lots of people's lives goes by and they don't even know what the hell happened to them. There's a very famous movie which, I don't know, it used to be on TV. I haven't seen it in the past 5 or 10 years flicking through what's on TV. But it's called The Lost Weekend. And what The Lost Weekend is this guy, I think it was played by Ray Milland if I remember, and he starts on Friday night, takes a drink, and all of a sudden Monday morning, what happened? He has no idea what happened in the middle. He was dead drunk the entire weekend and goes through all the things that happened to him. Wait a second. A lot of people go through long weekends in their minds. You go through long weekends in your mind if you've ever been traumatized. If you've ever been in situations that you couldn't deal with. People get it simply because they have years of fog in their life where they can't remember quite what happened. What I'm saying is that one of the things about meditation is to be conscious. Going unconscious and becoming disassociated is the opposite of being conscious. Can everybody follow me? So I want you to be aware of this. And one of the things about looking at your finger is that at least, if you can get a point, every once in a while, look, I'm serious, just do this with your finger and recognize you're doing it. Because when you really get disassociated, you'll forget and you won't even see it. So everybody follow. It's a helpful thing to kind of remember. Now, as we go over to here, now the next business, if you can seem to remember when I was showing you about from your shoulder to your elbow and at your hand, can everybody remember that? Now, over here, when you finally get to the point that you're turning to the side, watch. If I just do this in slow motion, watch my hand. Did you see the way that that's going? Now this bringing your hand forward, if that doesn't spring you all the way back to your spine, nothing will. The point of it here is, Paul, can you come here? Put your finger on my pinky because there's something about, no, get over here. You have to put on my pinky, not your pinky. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we go. Wrong pinky, okay. Here we go. It's always the wrong pinky, any way you look at it. I want you to look at this hand first. Come back. My arms aren't that long. Now watch something. Watch something here. See where my hand's like this? So how far forward is my hand going? It's going forward quite a bit. Oh, take the middle finger. It'll work just as well. Honestly. It's just the finger. Okay, so watch. Look. No, I don't get there by moving my hand. Notice something. My hand is not particularly moving. The elbow is dropping to create the space for this. Can you all get that? Now, if you don't feel this, if you're doing it honestly in your neck, all I have to say is you've really got a good neck. And having watched all of you, I don't think that's the case. So, let's do the other hand. Okay, so now here we go. Again, Paul, I want you again to put your hand on my middle finger. So, okay, the other one up, look. So watch what's happening here. It's the same thing, isn't it? Actually, you could even say the bottom one actually is even going further. How are we doing? Yes or no? Have you got that? Cool. Now, the next part of it, well, let me just take this. So you guys go out there and do, now wait a second. Let me make this a bit strong. Come here, Paul. You're going to do it.
You want me facing that way? Or?
No, you should face that way because I see your hand. Okay, so just kind of walk around here. Okay, so now watch something. So Paul's over here. So give or take, right? The edge of his hand is probably going to go down to where his finger is somewhere around his nose. In other words, it's going to drop quite a bit. The more his hand drops, watch, look at his elbow, the more his elbow has to drop. And that causes quite a bit of stretching. Okay?
Sure.
Now, for example, if you take your shirt off, I think this will be very obvious. There's at least one muscle that's going to be very obvious it's happening to that most people, you can't quite miss it. Look at this muscle and notice something. Anybody watching it stretch out? Yeah. Okay, now, the trick is he's got to do this and not have his chin move. Because if his chin goes forward, what does that do? That releases all these pressures. So his chin stays back there, keep it there. That's right, I'll bite you if you don't. Here we go. Now, can you all see what that's doing? And the art is, if you will notice when I did that, because I did it pretty severely on Paul, but look at me. Right? Sorry. I'll even put my hand pretty far out. Watch. It's that, put your hand on the crown of my head. The dropping here and the crown, the central channel lifting, all go together. I would have to say that when Leo made me do that the first time, even though I had been doing Bhagavad for a long time, I just kind of got, my neck didn't do so well. Okay, so you get over here and you've gone like this. Well, the last one is actually pretty simple. Just turn your palms out. That's it. You know, boom, boom, as it were. Okay? Turn your palms out. But here's where the whole thing now comes in. So you got your palm and you went out, right? Usually when you go down this far and you load it that much, look, do you see how everything just extends out very slightly? Yes or no? Yeah. It's down this way and it extends out very lightly. Now, I should mention this, that exactly why Leo did this, actually I know why I did it, but I'm not going to go into it because it's a very long conversation. In the monastic schools, they did both of these. And is probably the reason why it ended up. The two biggest branches of the martial art thing of Bhagavad are effectively the Yin Fu school and the Chantinghua school. Everything more or less kind of went out from there because Ma Shi-Ching, although he studied with Yin Fu for the first year, he lived with Dung Fi. He studied with Dung basically for almost all of it, except the first year with Yin Fu. And the thing is that the Yin Fu school has got a thing about, they walk the circle like this. But then they have this too. Now, it's because that in the monastery, they had the ways of walking like this. Okay, they had it this. There are 200 ways of forming your palm in the monastic school. Did you all get that? 200. Now, what Leo did very simply is that the Chantinghua school never does this in particular. The Yin Fu school did. But it's because in the monastery there was a group, certain trigrams are better done with this and certain ones are done with the other. But at the end, the basic thing is this, just watch. So you have woomph, and then look. Do you see, you just kind of let those joints kind of come out a bit. But now you have two things. Just take two hands, doesn't much matter. Repeat after me. Twist in. Suck your chi in from your palm to your lower dantian. Through your arm to your dantian. Twist out. Make it go from your dantian out your hand. Out. Now, you have two hands. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so the basically what it boils down to is this. You can make both palms twist out. You can make both palms twist in. So the whole time you're walking, you're doing nothing but absorbing energy. Whole time you're going out, you're doing nothing but projecting energy. You can get this palm to project and this palm to suck in, which is very common for those things. But then again, you also can do it the other way. You can get this one to suck in and you can get that one to project out, which is very, very common, all sorts of stuff when you come around. Now the martial art of Bhagavad adapted these techniques, and these techniques in the monastic school actually had nothing to do with martial arts. What they did have to do was simply the way that a human being takes the forces of the universe in and out of them, so that eventually they could start becoming aware of what they were taking in, and even more important, what they were putting out. And most people are not aware of what they put out. They're not. Most people are aware of what they consciously put out. Most people are not aware of what in the bargain basement below their mind what they put out. The monastic school actually has a very big thing about understanding that and being very clear. For example, Guru, if you're in a hospital, you must have seen lots of doctors or nurses when they come around and the patients like almost fucking cringe. Well, they're just sitting it out. And yet there are other people, they come in, everyone goes, even they don't say a goddamn word, it's because what they're putting out. So this is a whole subject of yin and yang, of like what you're pulling into you, what you're pushing out of you, to actually eventually get very clean with the whole business. This becomes insanely important when you get to the point where you're actually able to practice with the psychic and the karmic body. And I mean insanely important. Okay? Now, what I want you to do is that I want someone to go out there and I want you to do 3 minutes of each one. Somebody's got to have a watch and just 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what's 1? Both out. Both in. 1 out, 1 in. right? Yes? One out, one in. And if any of you just know anything about Chinese medicine, yin yang, yang within yin within yang, and now basically you've got the basis of all Chinese medicine. And there's actually whole ways in which you do things very specifically in Bagua to make it act as a form clearly of Qigong medicine with no nonsense by messing around with those and then getting a bit more sophisticated with it. Okay? But the first thing is very simple. Are both sides of your body able to release energy? Are both sides of your body able to take it in? Okay? Are you capable of having one side of your body take it in, the other one put it out, one take it in, the other one put it out, so that you feel no blockage, and the simple way of putting it, your tubes are clean. Yes? So this method of walking the circle at its most minimal level is about clearing stagnant qi out of the body. Period. And then there are more sophisticated things you can do with it. Because there's all sorts of ways you can. Anyway, you can target every part of your body with it, put it that way. I can't teach you that right now, it's a bit soon, but I want you just to understand. You should at least know the basics. Yes?
So how does the twisting in and out of the legs during the walk affect how you're putting energy in and out?
Okay,
of the
fair
palms?
enough. The way that this goes is that initially coordinate left hand to left leg, right hand to right leg. You're not going to be tested on this, but in time, coordinate left hand to right leg, coordinate right hand to left leg. With that one, I got to tell you, is a stinker. I mean, I can personally state it took me a long time before I got that one. The one on each side is not so bad. The one where you reverse sides is a stinker. That's all I'm going to say to you. It's a stinker. There's just no way to sugarcoat that one. It's very difficult. I told you where it's going to go later on, but the coordination between the legs and the hands can only be done when two things occur. A, your dandian has to really open, not casually open, but really open. The second one is that you have to find the space in your mind where everything can be there simultaneously with no conflict. All of it's there at once with no conflict. Because that is the only way you can make so many of these super sophisticated things coordinate. You can't do it by thinking, oh, I'm going to make this coordinate with that. Lots of luck. Have fun. Be my guest. You know, if you like failure, try. Or put it this way, it happens so rarely, you might as well simply discuss it never happening. No, there's a whole process you go through where you go through with your arms and whatnot, which is my intention to teach. And I have taught it at times. But you have to find that place inside you where all of a sudden, where does all this information come out? Where does all this thought come out? Where does all this awareness come out of? For that, somehow you've got to tap into your fourth energy body at some sort of a serious level. It's the only way it can be done that I'm aware of. And somebody else knows another way. All I can say is go talk to them. Okay, so let's do this again. Shh. Number one, both out. Number two, both in. Number three, one out, one in. Number four, reverse the out and the in. That's it.
3 minutes of each.
3 minutes of each. Let's make a very clear distinction. Many of you here may not be familiar with these words, but I'm going to use them because they're the ones that have been used for the past 200 years in the English language. But unfortunately, a lot of what previously was part of the English language in the past 20 years has basically just gone dead. The phrase that history began before breakfast is very true in the modern times. Most people in the United States, if you actually would ask them about the history of the United States, wouldn't know anything about it. They can remember a few things. George Washington did something, right? And there was Abraham Lincoln. And above and beyond that, it actually gets pretty sad. And for Europe, Europeans are a bit better with history, but as a point of fact, history is a lost subject these days. So I'm now going back 4,000 years, which is not exactly modern times, and you will not see it on CNN, any way you look at it. Okay, or the evening news. All right, let's look at something here. The monastic tradition, the spiritual tradition of Bagua had nothing to do with martial arts. They had all sorts of martial arts in Taoist monasteries. Sun Tzu, The Art of War, is a Taoist text. Taoists were always known for having martial arts. There became, after about 500 AD, actually more around 700 or 800 AD, there became the phrase that got used quite commonly, which was external and internal. Anything to do with the Shaolin became known as external. Anything to do with the internal became known as the Taoist. Even though those terms in some ways are not completely accurate, because there was a lot of internal work in Shaolin. The difference being that the Taoist forms completely depended upon internal work, and they did not depend upon external practices at all. And that's a pretty big distinction. But within the monasteries, they had lots of martial arts, with weapons, without weapons. The classic thing was, if you're going to become a wandering Taoist, you just never know who you're going to find in the mountains, be it bandits or be it animals. And many of you here have probably never really had to fight a wild animal. I've only had to do it once. I fought a bear with a spear. 2 of the people in our party were maimed for life. Okay? So animals are also part of, fighting animals is also part of martial arts. No 2 ways about it. But we don't do that today. We have these big cannons and we can blow their heads off quite easily. And even then, most people are a little bit nervous about taking on bears at close quarters and other animals. So let's look at something. In the single palm change, its whole basis were 2 things that were completely interlinked. You would walk the circle, you would sit and meditate. Whatever the circle walking brought up, you would complete in meditation. Whatever came up in meditation, you would complete in circle walking. There was no idea that they were separate. It was just a bit like the 2 fingers of your hand, or your 2 hands constantly bouncing forth and washing each other. There was never any idea that they were different. Lying down practices were thrown into it. The Bagua was a particular thing that was done in Taoist monasteries, and as well as that, not everyone did it. Some people went the Qigong route, which eventually became things like Tai Chi. And then they had things about sitting, doing Qigong, and lying down practices. Were very common in that group, in the Qigong Tai Chi characters. Not as much with the Bagua people. Okay? So these practices were only done to develop a chi of a human being, to make their body strong enough to be able to meditate, and to make them strong enough as such time when they left the monasteries and they did their typical 3, 4, 5, 10,000 walkabouts, that they were physically able to do it without falling apart. This is a big thing. Taoists are known for this all throughout Chinese history. They very commonly would just, after they had done their time, they would do a big walkabout, visit all the Taoists in China, walkabout, see life, get what life was about, and then a few of them came back to the monastery. And the vast majority of them just settled somewhere and started little Taoist groups of their own. That's pretty much how it went. Now, the martial art thing, the legend says that Dong Haichuan, this is about 1800. Bear in mind, that's really quite different in 2000 BC. It's a long time. He's supposed to have met 2 Taoists in the mountains, refused to state who he learned what he learned from. But every single principle he was using at the internal level was completely congruent with what was in the Taoist monastic tradition. It was just completely of one piece with all Taoist Qigong. And he came up with all these fighting techniques. Now, a lot of fighting techniques, for example, things you would get in the post things, these things were in Chinese martial arts all over the place. But the circle walking way of using circle walking completely for fighting was utterly unique. No one else did it. Lots of Shaolin have things where for a little part of their form they walk around in a circle, hold a posture, but their whole thing was never based upon circle walking. Most likely it did come for some Taoists, but the question is how, why, when, and where. Nobody knows. And nobody can make a speculation. My own personal teacher spent many years with Ma Shi-Ching, who Dong Haichuan lived in his house. He was a direct student of Dong Haichuan. So Ma Shi-Ching tried to wheedle out of Dong for years, and he tried everything. Every trick you can imagine to get him to say where he learned it, and Dong would never say it to anybody. He never said it to anyone. There's nobody who was around Beijing who will say that Dong ever said anything about where he did. And if he did, he was a cheeky bastard. He would say like 5 or 6 things, and the next he would just tell them the opposite ones, just to kind of like confuse everybody. He did not want anyone to know where he learned it. My guess is that if he did learning from Taoists, and they are this way, they made him take an oath, and that's it. And when you take an oath in Taoism, you don't break it. You'll die first. Okay, you want to kill me? Be my guest. I mean, seriously, they're very serious about that kind of stuff. And they don't take oaths easily. They don't take them easily. But long story short, so there's a difference. Now, where do you have this crossover? Well, there are some of the people who've been in Bhagavad from the beginning were absolutely unspiritual types. There's no way of talking about them as spiritual. But they got the internal power stuff that made them very strong. And some people had a leaning toward at least some sort of meditative aspect of it. But the monastic tradition didn't have a leaning, a tendency. That's what they did. Now, during this thing, I'm showing like some of this stuff, and I'm just mentioning it because effectively, the martial art tradition is the only one the West knows about. It doesn't know about the monastic tradition. It's just really not been let out in public very often. And most Taoists won't teach it to outsiders. Now, what do I mean to outsiders? If you want to learn those type of things, usually in some branch of Taoism, you have to become a formal initiate. You have to, it's a little bit like joining the CIA. The bounds of secrecy are that tight. You just can't idly chat about what you did. That's just not cool. And anybody who wants to, they throw them out and they never let them back in again. And because the commitments are rather severe. But if we look now just at some of the practices they did, some of the very basic stuff, making your mind stable, getting your chi to flow, having your mind really be able to expand without gaps. That's in the martial art tradition because that makes for good martial arts. But nobody ever accused Dong Hai Chuan of being a very spiritual man. Never once. I have never heard any story. I have never heard of anybody writing it down. Never once was he accused of being a very spiritual man. What he did is he took some of the power you can get from spirituality and used it for martial arts. Now, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of stuff. It's good things. I'll be happy to show some of it because some of you here are more interested in more the martial arts side. Some of you, hopefully, in time are getting interested in the meditation side. I wrote a chapter in the end of The Power of Internal Martial Arts. Now, in that, if you read it, it talks about what people in those days who did spiritual martial arts, they were not doing martial arts light. They made the guys who did cage fighting seem like relatively friendly individuals. They played rough. And within that playing rough, when stuff arose in them from fighting one, then they would go and sit and meditate. It wasn't like they were just doing it, like kind of like what I just call martial arts light. These guys were heavies. However, in the monastic tradition, many of the people who practiced the circle walking as a method of spiritual evolvement would be what we would call pansies today. They were not people who had any interest in fighting anybody or doing anything. So all I'm trying to say is get what you are. If you're doing it for fun, just don't kid yourself you're doing it for martial arts. In China, they had a very simple definition of someone who did martial arts. Not only could they kill you, they would if slightly provoked. Like a soldier. Is there any professional soldier who's got a problem with killing anybody? Have any ever heard of a professional soldier who is the least bit bothered about killing somebody? Well, there isn't, because if they do, they better get a different profession, because if you're a professional soldier and it bothers you to kill people, you are committing suicide joining an army. You will die. There's not even a maybe, you will die. So not everybody has that, but because of the nature of human beings of talking apes and wanting to be the alpha ape, there's something about fighting that always gets people. And it's the same exact thing, I think, when you drive down a highway and you see someone you see a car wreck and bodies strewn up, everybody's got to look. They can't stop themselves. It's built into being a talking monkey. Don't ask me how, I have no idea, but it seems to be there. So all I'm trying to say is if I'll probably show a little bit of Rosho at some point. Lee knows guys, I'm showing them applications, I'll show you applications. If it helps you, fair enough. If you want to learn, and I will in the future probably still teach Bhagavad, sometimes as a martial art. If you want to learn it to be able to defend yourself against criminals, okay? And I use the word quite literally. That's different than playing. Then you have to get that is the position usually when I teach I come from, not just the playing recreation one. Because I grew up in New York City as a child. I personally saw lots of people murdered. Okay, I got into martial arts after seeing somebody murdered. And after seeing someone get their guts sliced out in my schoolyard and spilling all over the floor. And I said, you know something? That's not going to be me. So, and then I got into it for what it is. I've never done martial arts strictly for fighting. After my first year or two, basically, I could lay anybody out I wanted to. I had a one-shot knockout from the age of 14. But what I did do, no, you couldn't knock everybody out, but it usually worked. But the fact of the matter is that I liked it as an art, and it is an art. And in art, artists get terribly fanatical about whatever art they do. I don't care if you're a dancer, an actor, a writer, a painter, a sculptor. When people really get into art, I'm telling you, they just go, and that's all there is to it. They have no choice in the matter. There's two things, folks. In terms of both the martial and the meditation tradition, the body has the ability, hear me, by changing its chi to change the exact quality of everything inside of it. So you can become soft as water or hard as steel, and it's only ultimately an issue. It's not what you do with your body, it's what your mind can do. That's what it comes down to. Yes, there are practices that are more conducive toward getting your mind to go soft, and there are practices that are more useful to getting yourself towards steel. But the fact of the matter is that it is only one thing that is making it happen, that's your mind. Can you all hear me? Your body is, if you talk about your body, keep this one thing in mind. The primacy in every classic, it always says the mind is king and the chi is second. The mind directs it. The mind doesn't create it, but it guides it. So it's the state of mind you're having when you're doing this that is the big issue. Okay? And the state of mind includes everything. You cannot know what your state of mind is ultimately until you can put your mind inside your body. Because you have no idea what your mind is doing if you can't feel the inside of your body. You only can see the surface of the mind. But if you go in deep, you can. So I just want to mention these few things.